there's something about the amount of life that the Pantanal holds. That it seems to be pulsing everywhere. You can be amazed by the gentleness of a jabiru. Or you can feel empowered by how fierce a giant otter is while hunting and eating fish. Or looking into the eyes of a jaguar and knowing that it's looking back at you. I think they all bring different aspects of what it means to be alive. So the Pantanal is a wetland. It's actually the largest tropical wetland on the planet in the center of South America. It's one of those sort of last wildlife refuge on Earth, a place where you can go and meet other species hardly seen anywhere else. Gente, as onças do Pantanal são 2 vezes maiores do que as da Amazônia. Eu não sabia, eu sabia que eram maiores, mas não 2 vezes maiores. And also something that I really like about the Pantanal, that it's a land of superlatives. So you have the largest tropical wetland on the planet, which is home to the giant otter and the giant anteater and the largest parrot on Earth, which is the blue macaw. And everything is big, everything is a lot. It's the highest density of jaguars. The Pantanal alone is the size of Portugal, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Switzerland combined. It's also an extremely important biome for carbon storage. So as a wetland, we know that it plays an essential role in regulating the climate, not only locally, but also fighting a climate catastrophe globally because of how much carbon it stores. And I grew up in a city, just a nature lover who was far away from that place. But as I started studying biology and became a conservation biologist, this sort of like grew inside me, this wish to go, and specifically for the jaguars, because that's the place where you want to go. I also had the luck to marry a conservation biologist who is also a nature lover. So Ben and I decided to celebrate our wedding anniversary in the Pantanal. And not only in the Pantanal, but in the heart of the northern Pantanal, which is one of the most wild places where you can see and observe the jaguars like very closely. But to get there, you have to cross the Transpantaneira Road. And the Transpantaneira Road is supposed to be in itself this amazing safari. There are many bridges and the water concentrates underneath those bridges and apparently the animals as well. But when we crossed the Transpantaneira, we found a very different landscape and experience altogether. So we arrived to an open cemetery and we started seeing animals dead, we started seeing fire still and lots of places burning, and we got really, really scared. But we are there to photograph animals and we encounter loads of dead animals. So we decided to just start photographing and filming what was happening. So we take about 6-7 hours traveling across the Transpantaneira to get to our posada. And then when we get to our posada, we don't find the posadeiro, the owner, Daniel, and we hear he's firefighting elsewhere. And then we started joining the hotel owners to fight the fires. And they had no equipment, they were throwing sand, they had like garden hoses, and they were like so unprepared. And then Ben and I started to get really worried, and we just sat down with the community and asked them like, how can we help? And then they started saying like the water bombs and hoses, like a lot of professional equipment that they lacked. I was doing my postdoc at the time, so I had more flexibility. And I told Ben I would just stay. So I drove back home, dropped Ben, rent a car, pickup truck, and came back. And then at this time, it sort of exploded in the news. And some of my friends started like sending messages and trying to call, like, I'll go, what can I do? I'll go with you. So for 3 of my friends, biologists, 3 women, Cecília Licarião, Lua Benício, and Daniela França, created this unit called Chalana Esperança. And with donations from friends and family, we were able to buy a water truck, a boat, to help rescue animals, to help firefighting, loads of equipment to protect people so they could fight the fire more efficiently. And we just stayed here for like 45 days. $17 million vertebrates burnt and died that year alone, 2020. %26% of the biome burned, of a biome. I mean, I can't talk about what happened without getting really shaken still. Especially because I think I had expectations of visiting this beautiful magic place, and what I found was a completely devastated landscape with loads of dead animals and dying animals, which is even worse because you rescue animals and they're burned and they're hurt and you have a little bit of hope that they're going to make it, and then you hear 2-3 days later at the vet hospital they died as well. I think I got pretty damaged. But it's in a place I avoid to access.
Eu me chamo Heideger Nascimento, eu sou biólogo por formação, eu nasci e cresci em Fortaleza, Ceará. E o Pantanal, ele chegou para mim de 2 formas. Primeiro de uma forma pessoal, na qual eu nasci e cresci num bairro chamado, que é ao lado, que era, né, mudou o nome, de um bairro chamado Pantanal. Era um bairro que era conhecido por ser um pouco perigoso. E eu lembro que o Pantanal era um lugar pelo qual minha mãe sempre falou assim, cuidado quando for para lá, ou até mesmo várias vezes ela falou, não vá para o Pantanal. Então o Pantanal para mim sempre foi muito com duas interpretações assim. Esse lugar pelo qual eu nunca poderia ir e esse bioma incrível, como bióloga, era um lugar que eu sempre quis conhecer. Em 2020, começaram os grandes incêndios no Pantanal e eu fui chamado por 4 amigas para ir lá e mostrar o que estava acontecendo. Acho que foi como eu cheguei ao Pantanal, através de um desastre. Não é bem a forma com que eu gostaria de ter sido apresentado ao Pantanal, mas foi o convite que mudou a minha vida. Eu lembro da cena do aeroporto, eu lembro que eu acho que eu ia com Cecília, assim. Eu lembro porque eu tava reconhecendo tudo, né? Tipo assim, eu já tinha ido em Cuiabá, mas pra mim há muitos anos, assim, eu tava observando tudo. E aí chegou uma mulher de quase 2 metros de altura, assim, assim. E aí eu lembro, assim, foi bem...
So Shalana started with 4 women, and one of the founders, Cecilia, suggested that we brought along this conservation biologist who was also an expert in audiovisual production. He was quieter to start with, but always precise with the words and like bringing perspectives that people haven't thought about before. So it was a good addition, not in terms only of visual recording, but also making us see things, I think, with more care and depth.
A gente começou a voltar a cada 2, 3 meses ao Pantanal, sempre tentando trabalhar em cima dos vários problemas e várias consequências pelo qual o fogo deixou o Pantanal.
I think 2020 was a transformative year, not only for the Pantanal, but for me and certainly for other people that worked with the biome. So I am no longer together with Ben. I moved to Campo Grande. Shalana has grown and we became a reference for environmental education in the Pantanal, and we work in different municipalities with both teachers from public schools and also the children. We're also working with women empowerment and social entrepreneurship. And recently we started a reforestation, well, we're about to start a reforestation project with indigenous communities. I remember when I was planning the trip with Ben, like ages ago now, it seemed to be such a wild place with like, so hard to get to, you know, this dirt road that you spend like 5 hours. If it rains, you might get stuck. And then now we've been back and forth so many times that it's so familiar. It's so like how many times we've drove within the same day back and forth. Like,
I don't know.
It's insane how familiar and how, in a way, smaller it got. When I arrived here in September, I told people I came to see the Pantanal and it wasn't here. And the way it was, I understand it still isn't. I think my hope would be to see this Pantanal I dreamed with and that everyone describes. And I've seen in like magazines and documentaries from years ago. I would love to see that place. I would love to see Pantanal becoming that place again.
Todo esse trabalho que a gente foi fazendo a partir de setembro de 2020, todas as vezes que a gente voltou, a gente sempre tentou se comunicar, era para ouvir pessoas diferentes também, grupos diferentes, fazendeiros, pousadeiros, ribeirinhos, as pessoas que moravam lá também, mas que estavam nas cidades ao redor do Pantanal. Então foi um trabalho muito de fazer, enquanto a gente entendia também todas as camadas que estavam para explicar tudo que tinha acontecido naquele cenário de destruição e tudo que era anterior àquele incêndio, mas que também contribuía para o incêndio.
I think it was only sort of stretching the surface, and then the more we started looking into it, the more we understood that behind the curtain of smoke, behind the fires, there were loads of other problems that led to this. So I think it's important to understand the reasons behind the fire, so we are not caught yet again just firefighting, but working in the long term to try to understand how to prevent fires to happen in the first place. So Hey and I decided to embark in this journey that it's almost a journey through Pantanal, but also through the multiple layers of what we believe might be behind this tragedy, to try to better understand really ways to prevent it from happening again. I think the question behind the trip is what has happened to the Pantanal and why, and also what is likely to be the future and how can we change it for the better. So we came from Campo Grande in Mato Grosso do Sul and drove up to Cuiabá in Mato Grosso. They're both capitals of these two states where we can find the biome Pantanal. It's really striking to see how we can drive for hours. Literally, we spent 13 hours on the road yesterday and see very, very little native vegetation. All you see is plantation. It's soy and corn and some eucalyptus, some sugarcane, but it's like monoculture after monoculture. So if you don't have the forests around, you don't have healthy rivers. And then the Pantanal is just being strangled by monoculture.
Olha, se a gente pensar aí nos últimos 30 anos, a gente tem visto um crescimento grande das conversões, né, de terras de vegetação nativa para uso principalmente de pastagem, milho, soja, principalmente no Planalto, né? As transformações que ocorrem principalmente no Planalto, elas têm influência na região da área úmida, principalmente porque são regiões conectadas hidrologicamente.
The Pantanal is a big ecotone zone, so it's surrounded by different biomes, but most of it is surrounded by cerrado. And the cerrado in the outskirts is being largely converted into monoculture, soy, corn, eucalyptus, cotton. But the protection of the cerrado is essential to protect the Pantanal, because the Pantanal depends on the rivers that are flowing from the cerrado into the floodplain. The biome cerrado would be a beautiful savanna, rich in biodiversity, waterfalls because of the landscape, an important carbon stock. It's just really sad it has been impoverished by that much.
This was the entrance. Forget everything. Keep your mind here now because you are getting in just Pantaneira. This is all about Pantanal now.
We never take pictures leaving it. We never left, like in a way.
It's
No.
one way only.
Toda vez que a gente cruza é aquela mistura, né, de expectativa para viver coisas novas, mas também uma ansiedade de saber o que aconteceu com o Pantanal, com os bichos do Pantanal e entender quanto do bioma sobreviveu, quais animais sobreviveram, e a gente sabe que não foram muitos. Tião is one of the few that actually made it. Tião was rescued in 2020 by Ampara Silvestre, an NGO, when he was about 5 months old. And here we are more than a year later, and he has grown a lot. He weighs about 150 kilos now, which seems a lot, but it's still halfway through what he can actually reach in terms of weight and size. He's very docile, but there's something very special about being close to him again after all this time. It's still a question to whether he will ever be able to return to nature, because he had to go through so much veterinarian care that he got too used to human presence.
And perhaps he does not know that he's a tapir.
Cadê você? Chegou aí? Tudo bem? Prazer.
É, aí como que ele é manso.
Foi horrível, né, Juca?
E foi uma coisa devastadora mesmo.
O céu tudo tava assim, né?
Tava
O céu
assim.
tudo tava...
Foi uma coisa que você olhava assim, parece que ia acabar tudo, né? E que de fato muitas coisas foram. O Pantanal ele tem que ter alguém para olhar para o Pantanal. Ele tem que ter alguém que conheça o Pantanal para fazer o que é certo.
Not too long ago when I thought about the Pantanal, and I think that's true for most people that have heard about this place. We usually hear about the biodiversity, the jaguars, the amazing wildlife encounters that one can have. But it's actually really interesting to realize how many different communities, indigenous peoples, pantaneiros, river dwellers, like all these different cultures and people that inhabit this place as well. So it's quite interesting to have that opportunity to exchange knowledge and learn from them.
Ele tem que ter um manejo do fogo. O fogo tem a sua função na hora certa. Na época de setembro, agosto, eu comecei a fazer um manejo de queimada. Cada dono do campo ia queimando de acordo com o que outro fazia lá e fazia aquilo para não dar aquele problema de queimada grande. Queimava só o capim mesmo. E a mata era limpa, né? Você podia ter acesso de sair, entrar pelo campo. Não dava esse motivo de queimada. Está acontecendo que o ciclo da natureza mudou muito. Agora descontrolou tudo.
Fire has been used historically in Pantanal as a tool to clean land. And when you talk to pantaneiros, they always speak about knowing how to manage fire. But what I feel is happening is that they've known how to manage fire under certain conditions that have now been disturbed and disrupted. It was a river. Those would be the structures where boat would come close for people to disembark. And you can see now how far we are from what is left of this river, like it's land. There's a little bit of water there that's probably gonna rot in as well because it's not connected to the São Lourenço River anymore. Last year we met Seu Lúcio, a pantaneiro, a man that was born and raised in Pantanal. We brought him some donations and we got to hear a bit of his life story. And he told us that he had moved from another place to where we were supposed to be going now because the river by which he lived in the past had dried up. And this time we came back to try to talk to him and see how he is. And we can't go across because this river arm has also dried up. The workers here just said they have to bring him water, which is shocking because you're in Pantanal, you are pantaneiro, you were born and raised here, and you're depending on donations to be able to drink water.
Todo ano que passa modifica o sistema, né? Do clima. De uns tempos para cá, de uns 5 anos, 6 anos para cá, o Pantanal foi descaindo, secando. Lugar que nunca secou que chegou a rachar o chão.
E foi um ano que não choveu muito em 2019, né? Porque nós estávamos com uma seca muito grande, porque não choveu, não encheu o Pantanal na época que tinha que encher, que era janeiro a março. E não deu outra. Quando chegou na época de julho, agosto, setembro, o fogo se alastrou, virou incêndio, incontrolável.
In 2020, the fires were combined with an extreme drought. It's like this fire is becoming a sparkle for a tragedy that wouldn't be expected if we were not facing climate change at the rate that we're facing now.
Eu acho que a questão do incêndio é sempre importante pensar em não identificar um único culpado, principalmente porque não existe isso. Eu acho que é interessante pensar como um grande quebra-cabeça. E aí você tem várias dimensões que interagem, aumentando ou diminuindo a probabilidade de ter grandes incêndios, catástrofes. Então você tem uma dimensão que é climática, então aumento de estiagem, aumento de ondas de calor, né, diminuição de umidade, mas que certamente a dimensão humana é importante. A gente não está falando aqui só de clima, né? Só a questão, por exemplo, a quantidade de incêndios por razões naturais, explica muito pouco de incêndio e da intensidade e da amplitude disso tudo que aconteceu nos últimos anos.
So what our research has shown, based on reports and on fire scars, like satellite images that show where fires started in 2020, is that a lot of the fires start within private property, within farms. Both state governments and at federal level, in July 2020, they prohibited the use of fire because of the dry conditions. And even then, some farmers made the choice to lit fires. So it's hard to measure intentionality, right? So we know where the fires started, but we can never tell if people did it intentionally, although in a lot of cases, the evidence points that direction.
Entender essa dinâmica da mudança de uso da terra é o propósito do Mapbiomas, né? Pensando em Brasil, né? A gente tem uma perda de vegetação natural, mais especificamente em termos de números, né? A gente tem uma perda de 50 milhões de hectares de vegetação nativa. As áreas de agricultura aumentaram 43 milhões de hectares. A agricultura tem 228% de aumento. Então, a gente tem, nesse pouco tempo de história, né, que a gente está contando, 38 anos, a gente tem uma mudança muito grande, né? Então, comparando um Pantanal lá de 1985 com o Pantanal de 2021, a gente tem uma queda de 76% de áreas úmidas. A própria seca do Pantanal, ele favorece com que essas pessoas que vêm de fora do Pantanal querendo abrir áreas para a formação de pastagem exótica, entre para dentro do bioma, né? Por quê? Porque ele está mais seco, então ele está mais acessível, né? Então esse processo de alteração da vegetação natural dentro do bioma está se intensificando nesses últimos anos.
Muito mudado, totalmente mudado. Ainda tem algumas regiões mais remotas, de mais difícil acesso, que tem um pouco daquele Pantanal de 1990, quando eu comecei, onde era aquela criação do gado de uma forma mais tradicional, pouco gado, rotacionando na pastagem. Hoje não, é a questão da produção muito mais rápido, criar, engordar, vender rapidamente.
Hoje, o Pantanal está recebendo pessoas que são alheias ao Pantanal, são alheias ao bioma. São pessoas que não entendem muito do manejo do Pantanal. E por conta especialmente dos campos alagáveis, que tem algumas espécies que elas se tornam não palatáveis ao boi. Então, é comum as pessoas colocarem fogo no campo.
There are farmers living within this biome that have for decades respected the Pantanal and lived and produced in harmony with the Pantanal, and that they were hit hard by the drought and the fires as well. But we know that there are also farmers that are coming without the understanding and without the relationship with the land, and that are sometimes interested in clearing land for their ranching practices and losing control over the fire they're starting.
Então é lógico que existe uma demanda local, por exemplo, para a produção de alimentos, etc. Mas o que impulsiona as grandes mudanças de uso do solo e de produção no Pantanal e no entorno, muitas vezes são áreas distantes, são economias ou de demandas de outros países, etc. Né? Então, por exemplo, demandas por aumento de soja ou mesmo produção de gado, etc., muitas vezes vêm de uma demanda de outros países, né? No Oriente ou no Oriente Médio, Europa.
Brazilians consume a lot of meat, but a big part of it is for export. So it's like, even though you might not be here in Brazil or in Pantanal, you still have an impact here, because we are connected in that manner now. We had a very important report coming up showing that at least 15 farms, had illegal fire that year that led to part of the big destruction that we've witnessed. And those were supplying to big international food companies like JBS, Marfrig, and Minerva. And in total, there was like 14 different meat processing facilities that together exported to the UK, the EU, the US, China, and Hong Kong. And we are talking about $3 billion worth of exports in 2020 alone. It ultimately means that there are people like that might be eating a burger in Europe, totally unaware that that burger might have been from the Pantanal and might have been involved with the loss of 1/3 of this biome. And then up to that moment, we thought that losing the Pantanal because of fires, because of farmers that were doing illegal practices was a Brazilian problem. But then when you establish these links with the international community, you start understanding that this catastrophe within Brazil was also fueled by international demand for cheap commodities, fueled and financed, because we are talking about food exporter companies that have refused to cut ties with their suppliers. So if you have farms in which you know that illegal fires have occurred, If you are truly a responsible company, you would cut ties with that part of your supply chain. But what we see is that companies are not willing to do that, so they just continue to run business as usual, even when they are caught having links with these ranchers and producers. And then on the international level, you still have companies that are willing to buy from these Brazilian food exporters. So as long as we have consumers at a corporate and at an individual level that are willing to close their eyes to what's happening here, we will continue to have this model of food production because it's profitable. They can carry on.
A matriz econômica do Brasil, ela é equivocada. Então começa por aqui. Ela é, como base, o agrobusiness. E aí ela fica refém do clima e fica refém das políticas globais. Eu sei que a China é o grande consumidor nosso e que agora eles estão expandindo muito a produção deles e aí eles vão reduzir a compra do nosso produto. Então, o que é que eu imagino? Se houve uma supressão absurda de formações nativas para as commodities, e essas commodities pode ser que para os próximos anos não tenha aceitação lá fora. E o Brasil vai ter que se reinventar. Só que aí ele não tem mais a formação nativa que ele tinha antes.
Então, assim, o Pantanal é um dos lugares ainda mais conservados do planeta. Temos ainda uma oportunidade de desenvolver cadeias de valores com baixo impacto. É possível, por exemplo, produzir carne no Pantanal com baixa emissão de carbono. É possível restaurar áreas críticas fundamentais para manter os serviços ecossistêmicos funcionando bem. Mas é lógico que isso vai depender da demanda, vai depender de um monte de decisões, etc. Mas a gente ainda tem essa oportunidade, eu acho. E isso passa por um envolvimento forte desses grandes setores, né? Não tenho dúvida disso.
Quando foi que eu vi no barco do Daniel e quando vi uma onça?
The Queen.
It's
Your
facing us.
So it's interesting for us to be visiting these most pristine wild areas and trying to imagine how the whole of the Pantanal was in the past. And we've learned recently that we always hear that narrative that 95% of the Pantanal is privately owned. But we also read that a lot of this land has been like self-claimed and more than 25% overlaps with ancestral indigenous territory. And we expect that those would have a much more harmonic way of living within the Pantanal. So we imagine that a lot of it would have been more like this and less like farms and monocultures and mining fields and all the destruction that we've seen. So it's interesting to meet these communities as well to better understand their role in everything that is happening.
A minha conexão com o meu território é a partir de que eu entro ali da entrada do distrito para dentro, eu já sinto o ar diferente. E você ter o contato com a natureza, de poder chegar aqui, ouvir sons de passarinho, de ouvir esses bichinhos da noite e assim, e quando eu tenho contato com a terra, eu sinto como se eu fosse uma criança novamente. Onde a gente está aqui é no limite da fazenda e território indígena. A gente já consegue perceber essa diferença desde que o território indígena tem a preservação do meio ambiente, da natureza, enquanto que do lado direito nós temos o verde do pasto, né? Da degradação do território.
So we were visiting the Terena people in the outskirts of Pantanal, in a municipality called Aquidauana, to understand their ways of living and their relationship with the biome. And one of their leaders brought to us that she had just visited this community called Guarani Kaiowá in Amambai. It's an area outside Pantanal, but known for its history of pushing out indigenous peoples for corn and soy plantation and constant conflict. And we told her that we would like to go and see what's happening. We drove to this place and we heard in the news that a few days before our arrival, this community had clashed with the police while trying to reclaim part of their ancestral land that is now a private farm.
And then we arrived to the place where they're actually trying to reclaim it. And all we see is corn. And those people are camping in the little tents made of like plastic and pieces of wood, trying to claim that land back. And you see elderly and you see kids and you see these families that are just trying to have their lives and livelihood back. And then you see this sort of pile made of like soil with some symbols on top of it, and it's the guy that was murdered.
Está aqui o nosso irmão Vitor, enterrado pelo agronegócio, financiado pela Alemanha, França, Japão, China e Estados Unidos principalmente. Está aqui o produto de vocês. Vocês não têm vergonha de financiar ao Brasil para matar o Vitor, nosso parente aqui.
O nosso Vitor, ele tinha um problema na perna, ele não conseguia correr. Então foi muito cruel a morte dele. A polícia, eles vêm atacar a mando dos latifundiários. Eles vêm atacar sem uma ação judicial, sem uma liminar judicial, na tentativa de fazer o autodespejo, né? Aqui é uma terra indígena. A diferença de reserva indígena e terra indígena. A reserva indígena é onde foi decidido, projetado pelo governo, sem perguntar para o indígena Guarani Kaiowá se ele quer sair da sua terra de origem. Eles foram arrancados, né? Nós fomos arrancados e jogados nas reservas, né? E terra indígena é onde a gente tem memória, onde temos as histórias coletivas que é repassado para o pai, para o filho, para o neto e assim vai, né? Então, e na nossa cultura, a nossa retomada é através de canto e de dança, não com arma de fogo. Chega de, a gente pede que parem de nos matar.
I think for agriculture expansion to work at the level that it's working in Brazil, you need to make these people worth less. You need the cultural license, the social license to remove them, to deny their rights. It's almost like we question the humanity in people that are different from us, because if not, they still hold a lot of land, and agriculture expansion wants to get to these areas as well. it's part of our economy to be producing food, not only for Brazilians to consume, but also to export. But we are also hitting that moment in history that we need to make a distinction about how can we produce food without costing the planet, and how can we produce food to feed the planet. I recently came across an expression that I thought was quite useful to make this distinction between agribusiness and agrobusiness. So you can have agribusiness that is responsible, that follow environmental law, that understands that we need the Amazon to be able to survive in São Paulo. And then you have agrobusiness, which are these people that are setting illegal fires, they are deforesting, they're pushing for changes in environmental legislation, just focusing on their own profit and, how they can make more money with the land they have. To start with, it was very naive of us in 2020 to think that the problem of the Pantanal was the fire, because it was, and it seems manageable if you think of fire alone.
It was a trip about violence too. We started to talk about violence against animals, but it's not only related to it. There's violence like people against people, powerful people neglecting the rights for people that live in hard conditions.
I remember quite strongly when we were talking to Val in her mom's house, and every truck that would pass by would make the room go silent.
I stress like as a routine. Lots of layers. Every time that we go to Pantanal, another layer reaches, and we have to arrange everything that we think that we know about the Pantanal.
Perhaps the fire in the Pantanal is actually the perfect analogy in itself, because remember how many times we thought the fire was put down, but it was burning underground?
Yeah.
And it's sort of the same. We think that it's over, but it's burning underground. The conditions are the same. More fires are being created and will eventually emerge in different places. Because right now we have defaunation because of fire. Then we have defaunation because of land use change and native vegetation suppression, and then climate change, and then new hydropower plants being built. It's like one thing on top of the other. And then for me, I think as long as the underlying conditions remain there, the catastrophic fires are likely to happen again.
The fire that we are seeing back has just started a few hours ago. I passed through here a kind of 2 hours ago, and the fire wasn't there. And this is the result of the landscape that I mentioned. Everything, it burns. Everything's gone.
In 2021, the fires were way above the annual rates in Pantanal, but smaller than in 2020. And then we started seeing that people were not paying as much attention, because the first question they would ask would be, is it as bad as 2020?
So we got almost 30% burnt in 2020. And then what do we need now? Half of the biome burned for people to pay attention? If one year is 30%, the other year is 15%, and 12%, and 30% again, those are all on top of one another. So that's why those images were so important. And I called Heideger and I was like, hey, can you go to the Pantanal? And he was like, yeah, when? And I was like, tonight. And then he went alone, which we never do.
There's sand in the air, there's smoke in the air. You can't breathe, you can't see, you can't talk if you want because everyone is running.
Heideger had a picture of this alligator in a pool in a hotel, and it was like, we are in the largest wetland in the planet, and alligators are seeking refuge in pools, in hotels. We are losing a biome. It's not like threatened species, it's a biome that is suffering a process of changing so much that it may cease to exist. We're really fucking it up, basically.
I'm almost dying to show you it, and you just don't care. Yes. It's unbelievable. It's what make me sad.
There's something about the amount of life that the Pantanal holds. That it seems to be pulsing everywhere. You can be amazed by the gentleness of a jabiru. Or you can feel empowered by how fierce a giant otter is while hunting and eating fish. Or look into the eyes of a jaguar and knowing that it's looking back at you. I think they all bring different aspects of what it means to be alive.
Sometimes I still can see, or I still can see all those animals scream, those trying to escape, trying to cross the fires. But it's impossible to finish, to talk about Pantanal and finish talking only about the bad things. The beauty still remains.
It always hurts me a little bit thinking that a lot of people that say they've worked here for 30 years or 40 years and oh, it's gone, you know, and they have this idea that it's lost.
But at the same time, it's a manufactured crisis. If it's man-made, it could be addressed. The problem that we have nowadays is no longer about data, like we know what's happening.
It is unsustainable development that is leading to climate change, drought, fires.
But we still need to be able to communicate across different people and make them agree on acting.
There is an environmentalist in Brazil, a researcher, Arnaud Dias-Bess, and he understands how serious the biodiversity crisis, the climate crisis are right now. And he says that a lot of times he questions whether he'll be able to prevent this road to destruction. But he says that even if he has to be just a bump to slow down the destruction, that he's quite happy to be that and to do that as part of his legacy in life. And I never forgot hearing this. And maybe all we have to do is be bumps. But if we have enough bumps, then maybe we can actually stop this.
Pantanal is very powerful. Able to recover if Pantanal has a chance to do this. I lived there my worst days in my life, but the best ones too.
Hi, thank you for watching our film today. I wanted to share with you that since 2020, Shalom Esperança has gone from strength to strength, and with the help from the Environmental Justice Foundation, Hey and I are doing everything we can to protect the Pantanal. We have brought training, cameras and drones to indigenous communities to help them document the injustice they face and also protect their territory. We've brought the stories of the Pantanal to the European Parliament, bringing awareness to the global community, hoping that we can get better oversight over unsustainable soy and cattle supply chains. And we have also begun to dialogue with senators and other lawmakers in Brazil to make sure that we protect the Pantanal. I want to invite you to join the fight. There is still time to protect this biome. You too can be a bump in the road of destruction to try to slow down what's happening to this special place and help safeguarding some of this amazing biodiversity.